They texted you. Out of nowhere. No warning, no apology. Just a simple, "Hey," or "How have you been?" And suddenly your heart's in your throat. You stare at the message like it's a ghost from your past, because it is. This is the moment most people crumble. They break no contact because of a memory, a craving, a flash of hope. They respond too fast, too soon, and too emotionally. And just like that, they're pulled right back into the same cycle they worked so hard to escape. Don't be most people. No contact isn't a trick. It's not about manipulation. It's about mastery. It's about emotional discipline, about saying, "I will not trade my peace for temporary attention. I will not abandon my growth for recycled pain." And unless there's a real reason to reopen the door, you don't. Because here's the brutal truth. Most messages that come after silence aren't about you. They're about their own guilt, boredom, ego, or loneliness. And if you break your silence too soon, you trade your power for crumbs. Again. The ancient Stoics taught one thing consistently: know what's within your control and protect it like it's sacred. Your silence? That's your control. Your peace? That's your fortress. Your self-worth? Non-negotiable. As Epictetus once said, we suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them. So how do you judge this moment? Should you respond? Or should you keep your silence unbroken? That's where this video comes in. I'm going to reveal the 7 situations where breaking no contact isn't a weakness. It's the right move. Where responding isn't giving in, but standing tall in wisdom and clarity. Each scenario is backed by psychology, grounded in real emotional dynamics, and filtered through the lens of Stoic philosophy, so you respond not with fear or fantasy, but power. Because the goal isn't to get them back. The goal is to never lose yourself again. Let's talk about when breaking silence is not a setback, but a strategy. Let's begin. Number 1. They offer genuine accountability, not just apologies. There's a big difference between saying, "I'm sorry," and showing real accountability. One soothes the moment, the other transforms behavior. When someone reaches out after no contact, the first thing to look for isn't how sweet their words sound. It's how deeply they understand the damage they caused. Are they saying sorry just to get a reaction? Or are they showing you, through honesty and action, that they've reflected, grown, and truly grasped what went wrong? Words without weight are manipulation. Words with accountability are evolution. Psychologically, people who've done inner work will speak differently. They won't deflect, minimize, or justify. They'll say, "I hurt you. Here's how. And I understand why it mattered." They won't blame the timing. They won't say, "We both made mistakes," to dilute their role. They'll own it, directly, calmly, without expecting immediate forgiveness. This is critical, because when you go no contact, it's a declaration of boundaries. It says, "I respect myself enough to step away from emotional inconsistency." So, if someone wants to come back into your life, they don't just need to cross that line, they need to earn it. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good person should be one." A good person doesn't just say, "I miss you." They show you they've grown into someone who deserves your presence. Ask yourself, are they acknowledging specific actions that hurt you? Are they expressing empathy, not just regret? Are they willing to rebuild, not just reconnect? If the answer is yes, and you sense genuine effort, not emotional bait, you can consider responding. Not to fall back into the past, but to witness whether change has truly occurred. But if it's vague, if they just say, "I've been thinking about you," or "let's catch up," that's nostalgia talking. That's boredom knocking, and you owe your silence more respect than their comfort. Remember, a sincere apology never demands a response. It earns one. When you've done the work to protect your peace, you don't entertain half-hearted energy. You don't let someone come back just because they're lonely. They have to return with clarity, maturity, and the willingness to walk the hard road of rebuilding trust. This is not about bitterness, it's about boundaries. And breaking no contact is only powerful when it's a conscious decision, not an emotional reaction. So if they show up with accountability, humility, and emotional growth, then, and only then, do you consider cracking the door open. Because healing deserves more than just words. It deserves evidence. Number 2, they respect your boundaries without guilt-tripping you. One of the clearest signs someone has grown during no contact is how they approach your boundaries. When they reach out, pay close attention not just to what they say, but how they say it. If they pressure you to respond immediately, guilt you for going silent, or act entitled to your time, that's not reconnection, that's control. A truly changed person respects your space, even when it inconveniences them. They'll say something like, "I understand if you're not ready to talk. I just wanted to take accountability." That's maturity. That's emotional intelligence. Because people who haven't changed will flip the narrative. They'll turn your silence into an attack. They'll say you were unfair for leaving. They'll play the victim. But someone who genuinely values you won't weaponize your distance. They'll understand it was necessary. Psychology shows that people who are secure in themselves don't panic when others take space. They allow others to move freely without controlling them. That's what you're looking for. Not someone who begs, but someone who respects. Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." If they're still trying to master you, instead of mastering their own emotions, they're not ready. You want someone who gets it, who understands that love isn't about possession. It's about permission. It's about freedom. If they reach out and say, "I'm here when you're ready," without pressure, without drama, that's a green flag. That shows emotional growth. Because when someone truly wants to rebuild, they won't try to rush the process. They'll be patient. They'll respect the rhythm of your healing. They'll accept that you have every right to protect your peace. Breaking no contact is a serious move. It should never be triggered by guilt, loneliness, or manipulation. Only by respect. Only by evidence of inner change. If their message includes pressure, urgency, or emotional blackmail, it's a trap. But if it includes self-control, emotional maturity, and a deep understanding of your boundaries, that's different. That's someone who might be ready. And you, who have done the work, embraced the silence, and protected your energy, deserve nothing less. Only break no contact when their energy matches your evolution. Not before, not ever. Number 3, they acknowledge their role without justifying it. If they reach out and finally take full responsibility for what happened, without twisting the narrative, without blaming the situation, and without minimizing your pain, that's a powerful sign. Most people don't do this. Most people send a vague, "I miss you," or "Can we talk?" because they want access to you again, not accountability. But when someone says, "I was wrong, I hurt you, and I've taken time to understand why," that's different. That's not just talk. That's awareness. And awareness is the first sign of real growth. Psychology tells us that true change doesn't come from shame. It comes from self-reflection. And most people avoid that reflection because it's painful. It means admitting they weren't as good as they thought they were. But if they do it anyway, if they face themselves and come to you humbly, they've started a transformation. Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake or thinking, I will gladly change. It is the truth I'm after." That's what you want. Not someone who wants to win the argument, not someone who wants to sweep it under the rug. Someone who wants truth, even when it hurts. So ask yourself, are they owning what happened, or are they just reaching out because they miss the convenience of you? Are they offering closure or seeking comfort? Did they actually grow, or are they just lonely? Because accountability is rare, it's uncomfortable, and it separates those who are ready from those who aren't. If they can name exactly what they did, if they don't defend it or dilute it, if they validate your experience without needing anything in return, that's someone who might be safe to hear out. But if they're vague, if they dodge the past, if they rush you toward "let's move on," they're not reaching for truth. They're reaching for relief. Don't fall for it. Break your silence only when their words reflect real understanding, when they speak your pain without denying it, when they show they've looked in the mirror and finally saw what you saw. Then, and only then, maybe it's time to respond. Number 4. They respect your boundaries without resentment. One of the clearest signs that someone has changed is how they respond to the boundaries you've set. If they text you and you say, "I'm not ready to talk," and they respond with patience, not pressure, that's growth. If they say, "I understand, take your time," instead of guilt-tripping you or demanding closure on their terms, that's maturity. Most people hate boundaries because it means they no longer have control. But a high-value person understands that boundaries aren't rejection, they're respect. Psychology shows that boundary-respecting people tend to have higher emotional intelligence and self-awareness. They don't see your silence as a game, they see it as your right. The Stoics believed in self-discipline, not only over oneself, but in how one engages with others. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." If they truly respect your growth, they won't force you to explain or defend your space, they'll honor it. So, when they reach out, look closely. Do they get upset when you're not available? Do they try to reopen wounds that took you months to heal? Or do they listen, wait, and make space for you to decide if or when the conversation should happen? Real respect isn't loud. It doesn't knock the door down, it waits at the edge of it. If they show you, they're willing to wait without complaint. If they give you time instead of ultimatums, that's a rare and powerful signal. You don't owe anyone access just because they ask for it. But if they honor your silence and still show up respectfully, that's the kind of energy you don't ignore. It means they're not just missing you, they're learning to treat you right. And that's when maybe you consider breaking the silence, not for them, but because you see their actions align with the respect you deserve. Number 5. They acknowledge their role without deflecting. Accountability is rare, and when someone reaches out and fully owns their mistakes without making excuses, that's a moment to pause. Most people deflect blame, twist the narrative, or minimize your pain to avoid discomfort. But when someone says, "I was wrong," or "I hurt you and I understand that now," without following it up with, "but you also," that's emotional growth. Psychology calls this radical responsibility, and it's one of the highest signs of self-awareness. When a person can sit with the discomfort of their actions without shifting the focus onto you, they're no longer driven by ego. They're driven by healing. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." If they're not just talking about change, but showing you through ownership, that's not just a text, it's a transformation. Look for the difference between performance and sincerity. A manipulator will say sorry just to get access to your emotions again. But someone who truly gets it won't rush the process. They'll express remorse and give you the space to process it. They won't push you to forgive them on their timeline. They won't use your pain as leverage. They'll simply admit their fault and let their consistency prove they mean it. When someone shows they've reflected, learned, and are willing to take accountability without demanding a second chance, that's when you consider listening, not because they said what you wanted to hear, but because they finally stopped hiding behind pride. Number 6, their actions match their words over time. Words are easy, promises are cheap. Anyone can say, "I've changed," or "I miss you," when they feel lonely or nostalgic. But change, real change, is only proven through consistent behavior over time. When someone reaches out, don't get distracted by their message. Pay attention to what they do next. Are they patient? Are they respectful of your boundaries? Do they show up for conversations without defensiveness or pressure? Stoic philosophy teaches us to judge a man not by what he says, but by what he does. As Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." If someone claims to be better, they shouldn't have to convince you. They should show you, and not once or twice, consistently. Because a changed person isn't focused on persuading you, they're focused on living differently. If they said they'd give you space, did they? If they said they respect your decision, are they honoring that? If they promise to work on themselves, are they showing growth without needing you to validate it? The test of true transformation isn't found in an apology. It's found in repetition, in daily choices, in effort you didn't have to ask for. That's the difference between manipulation and maturity. One wants control, the other wants restoration. If they're consistent, calm, and don't make their reappearance all about them, if they let their actions speak louder than their words, that's when you pay attention. Because consistency builds trust, and anyone who truly values a second chance knows it's not something they can talk their way into. They have to earn it. Number 7, you're no longer the same person they left. The most powerful reason to consider breaking no contact is when you've evolved so much that you're no longer emotionally dependent on the outcome. You're not seeking closure, validation, or a second chance to prove your worth. You're whole, grounded, and at peace. You're not the same person who begged, explained, or overgave. You've grown, you've healed, you've built a life that doesn't revolve around their presence or absence. And from that place of power, not pain, you might choose to respond. Not because you need them, but because you're curious to see if they've grown too. As Marcus Aurelius said, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injustice. When your mindset is rooted in strength, not scarcity, when you've reclaimed your peace and your boundaries are no longer negotiable, you become the one in control. You're not reacting emotionally. You're responding from wisdom. That's when breaking no contact isn't about going back. It's about facing forward with clarity. You don't lose yourself in the conversation. You observe, you listen, you discern. And if their energy still feels misaligned, you walk away without hesitation, because the version of you they ignored no longer exists. You've outgrown the chase, the confusion, the chaos. If you choose to respond now, it's not about fixing the past. It's about honoring your present. And that decision comes from empowerment, not emotion. So here's the truth. No contact isn't a punishment. It's protection, it's preservation, and most of all, it's power. You're not cutting someone off to hurt them. You're stepping back to heal yourself. And if any of these 7 scenarios resonate with your situation, then yes, maybe it's time to respond. But only if you're doing it from a place of strength, not desperation. Remember, silence is a test, and most people fail because they're too impatient to let the silence speak. But not you. You're learning to master your emotions, to choose peace over chaos, and to rebuild yourself from the inside out. That's what makes you dangerous. That's what makes you unforgettable. If this video hit home for you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear this today. And if you're on this journey of growth, healing, and stoic self-respect, make sure you subscribe, because we're just getting started. Your comeback begins with your boundaries. And your silence, it's not weakness, it's wisdom. Stay strong, stay grounded, and I'll see you in the next one.